The Daze Report. Let me open up your mind. Robert E. Lee's descendant proves his lineage and pushes for honest history of racism. Reverend Robert W. Lee felt like his integrity was being challenged when Confederate defenders continued to accuse him of lying about being a distant relative of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. He proved them wrong with the 400-page genealogy report he received in October. But the North Carolina pastor and social justice advocate says the accusations were a distraction from the difficult conversations Americans need to have about history. I believe it was an attempt to discredit the hard work I put into removing the statues and monuments to my ancestors, Lee told CNN last week. In January, Axios reviewed the genealogy report and interviewed the pastor, his father, and his grandmother. The family has consistently disputed claims by Confederate sympathizers that the social justice advocate was not related to the Confederate general. They hired a genealogist to put an end to the false reports. In 2018, rumors began to spread online that the pastor was lying about his lineage because his beliefs were a contrast to what some say the general represented. The general is seen as a hero and Confederate symbol by apologists, and some say his descendants' criticism of monuments and statues in his honor must mean he's not related. According to Lee, despite his namesake, Reverend Lee has publicly condemned the sins of his ancestors and has denounced racism since 2016. Lee began making several public appearances saying he was a descendant of Robert E. Lee, including a speech in 2017 at the MTV Video Music Award at the awards. The music MTV Video Music Awards. At the awards, Lee made a statement against the violence that occurred at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. In 2019, he wrote A Sin by Another Name, which tells his story of growing up being related to a Confederate general. He also has been pushing for the removal of Confederate monuments, including the Richmond statue of Robert E. Lee, which was removed in September of last year. About a month ago, the city of Richmond also voted to melt down the statue to create art for the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. Lee supports the decision to melt it down and believes this will lead to new opportunities to showcase history. I never thought in my lifetime I would see Richmond and Charlottesville get rid of their statues, Reverend Lee told CNN. They're idols of white supremacy and symbols of racism and hate. And for me, as a Christian and many other faiths, feel this way too. We can't have idols in our public square. That just doesn't square right with what we're trying to do as a community, as a state, a commonwealth, or a nation. Last July, Lee hired a genealogist to confirm what he always knew. He is a close and multiple cousin of Robert E. Lee and his wife, Mary Anna Randolph Custis Lee. The North Carolina pastor and his family were also concerned about a Washington Post fact check that helped fuel doubt that he was related to Confederate general. Lee says it was frustrating when people didn't believe him. About 2 years ago, shortly after the MTV speech, Lee said he found the gun shell casings outside his house. He immediately became concerned for his life. This wasn't a play for fame or fortune, but an attempt to be honest about my lineage and therefore be trustworthy as an activist and public theologian, he said. Weeks after proving that he was a descendant of Robert E. Lee, the pastor remains committed to reckoning with history. The controversy over his lineage comes as lawmakers in several states continue to restrict what is being taught about race in American history. Reverend Lee believes the history of Robert E. Lee should be taught in schools in an honest way. He wants the education system to teach his role in the Civil War, but to not make him a man that children should aspire after. Reverend Lee compares his honest education to critical race theory, a concept that seeks to understand and address how inequality and systemic racism is part of American society. The term has also become politicized by its critics as a threat to the American way of life and a topic of debate, especially across the South and Midwest. In Virginia, Governor Glenn Youngkin set up a tip line for parents to report teachers that are discussing divisive subjects. He also banned critical race theory, which is not taught in the K through 12 curriculum. Earlier this month in Florida, a state Senate committee advanced the legislation to block public schools and private schools from making people feel discomfort when they're taught about race. In a recent survey of more than 48,000 statues, plaques, parks, and obelisks across the country, Lee is the sixth most represented historical figure in the American commemorative landscape, according to the Monument Labs National Monuments Audit. We can't have this hole in our armor simply because we feel that we have to establish it for the past, Reverend Lee said. We need to be honest with our past just as I was trying to be honest with my own reality. Growing up, a 12-year-old Lee was heavily involved in church and developed a close relationship with his faith formation mentor, Bertha Hamilton, who also happened to be a black woman. He viewed her as a second grandmother, and she would constantly visit the home. During one of her visits, she walked into Lee's room and noticed a symbol that she believed went against the values of the gospel, a Confederate flag. She knew I was called and she believed I was called to the ministry, but she felt because I had a symbol of hatred hanging in my bedroom, there was no way that I would be able to be congruent with the gospel, Reverend Lee said. It took strength and courage for a black woman to square up against a man named Robert Lee and tell him the symbol of his heritage at the time was wrong and inappropriate. She questioned his character and made Lee realize that being related to Robert E. Lee wasn't something to take pride in, but it was a fact that he always felt he had to be proud of. Reverend Lee recalls sitting on his grandmother's lap as a young boy and being told he and his younger brother were related to the Confederate general. Excuse me. At first, they both admired General Lee. They saw him as a hero. Once their views began to change, Lee says their parents were open and willing to discuss things. That whole mentality of the lost cause started to sleep into my life. He said it then became a point of retrospection and trying to figure out what is the point of all this. Why are we celebrating this man who enslaved people and fought for the continued enslavement of black people on this continent? Ty Sedul is a retired U.S. Army general, professor of history at West Point, and author of Robert E. Lee and Me, A Southerner's Reckoning with the Myth of the Lost Cause, which discusses his own personal reckoning with idolizing the Confederate general in the midst of the lost cause. The ideology that the cause of the Civil War wasn't centered on slavery. He says he admires and respects Reverend Lee for challenging those beliefs. I fully support his mission and his willingness to engage in tough history. If a person is born with the name Robert Lee, there are a few possible options. Embrace what he stood for, remain silent, or publicly decry the values of Lee publicly. Sedul told CNN, Rob has publicly stated that Lee fought for white supremacy. He has disavowed the lost cause and worked for truth. I consider Rob a role model. Both Sedul and Reverend Lee believe the culture of the South also contributed to their initial thoughts regarding the general. Growing up in Virginia, Sedul said the word gentleman only referred to white men. He also said he was consistently surrounded by white political power that included Lee idolatry and Confederate monuments in front of courthouses. All of these were to support and defend white political power at the expense of black people, he told CNN. If we aren't critical of what we learned, we'll never grow, and if we aren't uncomfortable by the past, we're either ignorant or naive, Sedul told CNN. We should feel discomfort as white folk by the pain we have caused and work to ensure systems of oppression don't continue into the future. So, my thing is this. If these white men see their wrongs, why can't everyone else see it? Look, it's not about statues. A statue didn't call me the N-word. A statue did not enslave my people. But there is more history to black people besides slavery. But the problem is America won't take accountability for their BS that they've done. And they continue to do it today. All they've done is moved it to the corporations, moved it to entertainment, moved it to other places that they're allowed to do it because there's more of them in that place. And they know it's only 1 or 2 out of 10 of us who enter that genre. And either we're a token Negro or we're the person under the token Negro. We won't get a chance or a shot at that business. And this has been going on. White people love to yell racism. They love to rail prejudice. Why? Oh, I know why. Because they love playing victim, because that's what their ancestors taught them to be, is the victim. When they're killing a black man or a black woman, you could be a victim. Be the victim and say why you killed them. Because you were scared and terrified of them. When a black man walks past a white woman grabs her purse. We don't want your damn purse. We don't want nothing from you people. All we want is to have the same to have the same privilege that you guys have. I'm serious. I'm like, God rest Paul Mooney's soul. When I see a white person that's on the street that's a bum, I say that's a waste of perfect white skin, because it is. You should not be on the street poor or hurt and you're white. You get so many opportunities. You get so much leeway that you should have it. I heard a white guy on a Facebook thing tell me, man, I wish my white skin got me somewhere. I'm like, oh God. If this guy ain't so delusional, it's just honesty. It's just delusion. And to me, until they take accountability, we're still going to be in this world fighting for the same rights that we've been fighting for when MLK and Malcolm X were alive. It is what it is. But me, I don't use this as a crutch. I just know it's there. So I know when it gets shown, I know how to counterattack it. And it's with knowledge and self sustainability instead of anger and over aggression, if you understand what I'm saying. So, guys, thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, share this. Hit the notification bell to select all to receive upcoming notifications. And if you guys love the video, you can hit the description box. My Cash App link is there. It'll take you to my Cash App. You could donate $1, donate $1 million, whatever you're willing to give. We will accept. And I do not celebrate Black History Month. Black History Month is Black every day. So thank you guys for listening. This is the Dazier Report. We're signing off. Peace.